we start what we're gonna talk about The Outsider by Lovecraft. I was the one who proposed this story without any particular reason, honestly. Well, beside the length of it is very short story. Well, I really like Lovecraft. I have not read all his stories, but the one I have read, I really like it. I don't know. I think this is a good story to approach a Lovecraft style without entering. You know, Lovecraft is famous for the Cthulhu stories. I don't know if I pronounce it well, but they are more like complicated in a way, and I think this is more approachable. So I don't know. You guys tell me, do you like it? We can do like a first run of first impressions, if you like.
All right.
Starting with another. Do you like it?
Okay.
Which order?
I
I think we all see each other in a different order.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Andrea, you have to
So
mention
Andrea,
the
me
people.
first.
My other, of course. So we start with Adrian.
Okay.
Answer.
How strange.
Yeah, so I liked it a lot. I liked it more than I expected, actually. I had read Lovecraft when I was a teenager, and later on some short stories. I actually think that I had read this story many, many years ago, and I didn't remember that I had read it. I think it's a very interesting tale, and that it talks about deeper and more interesting things than it seems on the surface. We have someone that somehow remind me of this isolation and solitude that we are living now in quarantine. Someone who's alone, trapped inside a castle where he can't get out, but he tries to reach the outside world because he needs company from someone. He needs something that is not inside the castle, that is outside. And afterwards, after all his endeavors, his adventures, his looking into the outside world, while what he finds is that showing himself to others, presenting himself to others, all they see is a monster. And well, it has really deep implications if we think about it, of how we perceive ourselves, how we change, how society changes our perceptions of ourselves. And it ends on a very Lovecraft style, mentioning all these fantasy places that, well, add to the story another realm. So overall, I enjoyed it a lot.
Great. Eugenia?
Well, I really liked it too. I thought it was a very good example of gothic horror story, because it has this atmospheric feel, this dark and somber environment that keeps contributing to that sense of dread of what's going to happen next. Nothing good. So I really liked it, but I haven't read anything from Lovecraft before, so it was a nice introduction. I've heard of the myths of Cthulhu and other stories, but I hadn't yet tried any of his work. I'm sorry. So I really liked it, and I hope to discover his work. Can you please go?
Eugenia, you have my cat.
Yeah.
If the cat wants to say anything, I mean.
I think she doesn't. I think she she just wanted to have a look at you. So yeah, I'm very glad I tried him. I tried reading him because he's a classic of cosmic horror, and I've never read anything like it. So really looking forward to read some of it again.
Okay, Mo?
Yeah, I am not a big fan of Lovecraft. I tried to read, what is it, Mountains of Madness or At the Mountains of Madness before, and I just found it so boring. So I couldn't make it past the first part, which was very like technical and just kind of, yeah. So I wasn't very optimistic about this story, but it was okay. Certain images I liked. I like his ideas of these sort of, I don't know, yeah, cosmic monsters that our brains just can't handle, that we just felt mad at the mere concept of it. I like the concept, and some of his writing, some of the imagery I liked, but overall it's not for me, and I kind of confirmed it. I don't think I would read more Lovecraft after my two experiences with him. It's just, I just find it a bit meh. Okay, so.
Okay, so the next one is Roberto.
I did like it. I never read horror stories, so I was intrigued and but I was surprised because I really appreciate when there is some kind of depth or meaning. So yeah, I did like it, and although it's kind of depressing in a way, I really felt some kind of tenderness, or yes, kind of a feeling of tenderness for him. Like although his image, right, his reflection is of a monster. Actually, I felt like he's like some kind of a really good person, because of the idea that something that is scary or unpleasant or uncanny, unwelcome, is something that should be hidden to kind of not kind of protect the rest of the people. Does it make sense? Like, so in a way, for me, that was a connection to him being a good person, good-hearted, and I think it's quite thought-provoking. So yeah, I liked it.
Okay, great. Miriam?
Yeah, I must admit that I only read it, on the surface of a Gothic story. I didn't go into Roberto's on Andrea's analysis of thought-provoking or inner self looking for company. I am the one who sent the link with the audio. I found it difficult reading at first with such long sentences and complicated vocabulary. And hearing it while reading it, it really improved the tale. Okay, so Mo, if you ever made such a thing, perhaps you could try. I found that the theoretical reading, or the dramatized reading, was very active and made more sense of the story. What I really liked was this architectural concept of the building when it reminded me of these drawings of endless stairs that communicate with each other. I think it's Ecker, the artist, that has these buildings or drawings that he went into the tower, and from the tower into the garden. The garden led into a church. It was like a new world. And I really, really liked the concept. Although it seems that the writer was trying to keep us intrigued until the end, you kind of suspected what it was coming by the time you read about the golden frame. So I guess that we are too late in history. It's not our first Gothic novel. So It was not surprising, but it was kind of nice ending, the one that he found. It was my first reading of Lovecraft. I hadn't read anything before that, and I liked it. I enjoyed the reading. So thanks for choosing it, Angela. It was a nice choice. Quite representative of the writer, the style.
Okay, good. Jessica?
I haven't read any Lovecraft either. I liked it. I liked the style. I was prepared for the style because I knew about his style, but I hadn't actually read any. This idea of tenderness that Roberto was saying, I mean, that's mainly because it's in the first person, and it's very well described. The feelings, the what he sees, what he does. That's all very well described. So you know, you feel some sort of empathy because you know exactly what he's feeling because he's telling you. I think that's an explanation, and that's you know, that's his style that comes across very well. And then the ending, or nearly the ending with the mirror, that I saw that coming. I think that's obvious, but it doesn't take away any merit to the story. Then again, I sort of got stuck in the architecture of the story, trying to figure out how it was physically. That's impossible because, you know, I was trying to figure out, maybe he was in some sort of cavern. I got very stuck in that, just trying to figure it all out, until I came across an essay that I read later, describing it all as a dream logic, which I liked very much. That explanation, you know, your dreams, if you think about them, have no logic, but while you're dreaming, they're perfectly logical. As always, I like it more after I've read it, when it's sort of sunken in to my brain. And the title I liked a lot afterwards as well. The Outsider, it's you know, the eternal outsider, it could have been called as well. I liked it.
Good. Angela, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, but I don't know why my camera is not working. I don't know. It's like when I press the button, it's like camera has failed because the settings, I don't know. I don't know how to solve, so, but I'm here.
No, we can hear you. It's okay.
Okay. That's nice. So about the story, I agree with you. I also have liked a lot, and this has been my first time in also reading Lovecraft. So I think that it has been a good introduction because I know something about the style, but I have never read before. So I have enjoyed the style. I have enjoyed the description. I mean, the main character, how he speaks about himself. I mean, about this isolation and deepness. I think that is really well described. But also the castle is like I really enjoyed like reading like how he described the darkness, these trees, the forest, how he reached like the upside, and I mean when he changed like to the other world. And also I think that the end, I mean, I saw the end coming really soon because it was pretty obvious, but I've like the thing that Adrian said at the beginning, like how the others saw him like a monster and he didn't know why, and until he saw the mirror, he didn't know. So in general, I have liked the story, and I hope like reading more of Lovecraft.
Okay. Eloisa, hello.
Oh,
What do you
sorry.
think?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello to everybody. I really like the story. I like the genre. It's my first Lovecraft story. I never read anything like from him, but I like the genre. I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of Poe. I don't know if you have read Poe. It reminds me a lot of all this atmosphere and this Gothic style. In one hand, I really like that he's very descriptive. You can feel the atmosphere, you can feel his isolation, his feelings. You can imagine them, their area or the place and where is he. But on the other hand, I feel it's a bit, I don't know, it's too much description. Sometimes I get a bit lost in translation, like too much. But I really like it. And the ending was predictable. I think it was a bit predictable. If you like this kind of stories, you can imagine this kind of ending. But overall, I really like it. I think I'm going to read more of this author. I think, I like it.
Okay. Ale, have you
Yes.
your... yes.
Can you hear me
We
now?
can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, great. Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, so well, my name is Ale, and this is my first time here. And also, it's my first time here because of the book and because of the length of the book. I usually struggle reading long books or medium books or normal books. So I usually try to read short stories because I finish the stories. What I like mostly about writers is the style, and this style, the style of Lovecraft, I liked it. It's very good. It's very personal. It also reminds me of Poe, and so I would say that the style is the best because the ending is super predictable. I don't understand why you would do such a predictable ending when you have constructed a very good story. But yeah, the style was very good. Everything, like you really are into the story. But so I will continue. This was not my first story from Lovecraft, but I haven't read too much about it. So I will continue after this.
Okay. So for your information, we are doing like these special events in this current situation, and we are doing only like short stories. So you are lucky.
Yeah. So you will see me here more in that case.
Anne, I don't know if you can hear us or you can. You're in mute.
It's me? No.
Yes, it's you.
Yes.
It's me. I'm Angela. I don't know why
it's Angela. You are twice.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't
you
know
are
what
twice.
is happening.
Maybe that's the reason why
I'm
your camera
twice.
doesn't work. Yeah, you are twice with two different names.
How do you do
okay,
it?
I will close. I don't know what is happening in my computer.
This has never happened before.
But okay. I think. A ver.
Yes, now the unbox disappeared.
Now we can't see or hear you.
Yeah, she's not speaking right now. I don't know. And we have an Adam Murphy.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Asa. Can you hear me okay?
Asa, sorry.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, hi there. It's my first time. This is fantastic. I'm glad I found you guys. So I liked the story. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I think it was a good example of a, of a horror or kind of a story that you would read just to pass the time. It wasn't meant to be, anything beyond that. I think the ending was kind of predictable. I mean, we all kind of saw what was going on, and so I didn't think that was handled extremely well. I think that was a little bit redundant. So I don't think we needed for him to spell out the fact that it was a mirror that he was looking into. I think we kind of knew that. let's see, there was something else I wanted to say and now I forget what it was. Oh yeah, I felt kind of empathetic for the creature because of his loneliness, and he's just trying to get outside of this horrible world, quote unquote, that he finds himself, and he's just trying to reach out, and he's so I felt a little bit of empathy for the creature in that sense. I think if you have read Frankenstein by Anne Shelley, I think there was kind of a similar comparison, because I felt a lot more empathy for Frankenstein's creature, obviously, because it's a novel and we get to live with him for a lot longer, and this is just a short story. But I could see the loneliness that is common across both creatures, and the fact that they seem to want to reach outside of their own shells and to come in contact with the world and humanity. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, and that's that.
Okay, I'm glad. Of course, I really like the story, and not only because I choose it. And I really like the style of the writer. I read it both in Spanish and in English because it's a bit difficult, the style of the writer in English. But in Spanish, I really like it. I mean, this kind of use of so much adjectives and description, I really like it. Yeah, I agree. This is like a good example of more like a Gothic story, more than Lovecraft, subgenre, which is like the cosmic horror. But you can see in this story a lot of inspiration, as you said, from other writers like Poe. But I really like this story because we talk a lot about in other events about the importance of the perspective, right? And I think it's amazing how in a Gothic horror story, you have normally like a very stereotypical elements. So you expect like a human main character who face a monster, and in this case, the main character is the monster. So I think it was very original.
So, Angela, it's working for you now.
Yes, yes, it's working. I don't know what has happened, but
yeah, I agree. I think it's a very refreshing perspective because we have examples of Gothic stories such as Frankenstein, and I don't know, the first one of the genre, the Castle of Otranto, and stories like that are very tragical, very dramatical, very human. And then we have this short story about a monster, how vulnerable he feels, how lonely, how exposed, how he longs for something else beyond what he knows. So yeah, I think it's I don't know much about Lovecraft, but while his work is mostly known for creating the cosmic horror genre, and I think this short story has much more present human component and feeling than cosmic horror you would suppose it to be.
Yeah, it's still quite fantastic though. Like one of the good things that Lovecraft does sometimes is mixing reality and human lives, human jobs, in a regular sense, with the horror and the fantastic part of reality that he brings into this realm. And in this story, it's mostly fantastic all the time. Since the beginning, he's trapped in a castle surrounded by a weird forest, and there's like a tower that goes to the sky. Everything is very unreal. And well, it has a component of humanity at the end because he is a human and because he meets some humans. But other than that, it's very fantasy-like story.
Yeah, I believe Jessica was saying it before. Dream logic. I think it's a very, very good
Yeah.
expression to describe the feeling of this story.
You don't have to raise your hand.
Yeah. It is also very interesting the way the role that memory has in the tale, because he wishes to go out because he doesn't remember his past, and he feels young because he doesn't remember. And then when he feels the shock of finding out who he really is, he can't go back into his original self with total loss of memory, but he stays in the garden in a new dream-like life, and he somehow suggests that his memory will erase again all these feelings so he can continue his own life. I think they use the word nepenthe in the text, which originally was a plant, from the plant into the drink, from the drink into the state of oblivion. And this maze of architecture is also a maze where memory places a very special role, so he can go on his life or whatever his state is in different sections, different steps.
Yeah, I think this is the saddest part of the story, which is that we are left with a sense of melancholy and of deep sadness because he knows what he is, and the only way he can go on and continue is forgetting. And still, he carries inside this pain of knowing that he's a monster. Nepenthe, I have to look it up because I didn't know. Nepenthe is a fictional medicine, says Google, for sorrow, a drug of forgetfulness mentioned in ancient Greek literature and Greek mythology, depicted as originating in Egypt. It's a carnivorous plant. So he has to take this drug just to continue living. Otherwise, the pain will be too much. This is quite sad.
Yeah, and it's very human, like the monster, maybe because we don't often see the monster perspective, we don't wonder why they feel or why they are thinking. But in this story, obviously, we can establish a connection with the monster immediately. I mean, that's why I think it's very interesting because this debate of, I don't know how to express it, he calls himself an outsider, like a foreigner. In a way, the humankind could feel like in many situations, I think. So I think we could fully understand the monster.
I have a doubt now. I didn't think he doesn't actually take any plant or any drug. I got the impression that it's a reaction of his brain, of his body, to, I don't know, to so much knowledge, so much remembrance is just too much, and his brain reacts with forgetfulness. That's the impression that I got. Yeah, he doesn't actually take anything.
No, that's true. Lovecraft, when he reaches the unveiling of the monster, he zooms in. It takes a long time to make the reader aware what it is going to be like. He zooms in with long sentences. Each sentence includes one word that refers to death, decay, mold, and then he mentions these because the next zoom in that he does is that he starts using all these literary world creations or references, some of them that exist, like the defensive. Then he starts mentioning these number of pharaohs, valleys, some of them creations on his own, and some of them that already exist. But it's a an area where the reader gets a bit lost because he doesn't know the words. And some of these words will come up in different books or in different stories, but if you don't know them, I think that's one of the reasons why his tales were not so popular, because he was too literary. So it is true that he didn't take a drink. So be careful, Andrea, what you're drinking now. But he definitely, tries to express a final explosion of emotions or reality through complicated words and sentences.
It's interesting how the story is also circular. Yes, going back to the memory thing, because you can feel that the story can repeat itself over and over and over and over. And you don't know how many times this guy has gone out and felt the same. Maybe they have put the mirror there so he could see himself and hide again. So that's also interesting. And also it's interesting how they built a castle for him underground. So such a big thing for caring about this monster. That's also interesting. He also saw some skeletons, so maybe he wasn't alone, or it's not rare to hide monsters there. It's interesting.
I get the impression that when he got out, the first thing he saw was a church. So I don't know, maybe it was like some kind of construction under the church, maybe with an
Don't do that. That's what I said. I got stuck in all this. Where is he exactly? Did somebody build this?
Yeah.
Is it? Don't get stuck there.
And how could he imagine that he was in a castle and there were like trees? I was really wondering why it's like there are trees. He saw trees outside the window. How come? But it's underground. I don't understand.
Yeah, so maybe it's a cemetery. So maybe it's something that someone built for a rich family, in which they put also trees and stuff. And so yeah, maybe it makes sense because it's beside the church. Yeah, so maybe that's why.
I don't think we should read that literally, that he was living in a castle in the way we understand a castle today. I mean, I read it as this is a typical ghost story. Here's the dead who's coming out from underneath the ground, and so when he digs out and he or she, I don't know that we can make an assumption that it is a male. So when they come out of the ground and they find a church and the marble slabs, they're in a cemetery. And so I read this as the ascension of someone who's been dead. And of course, it's metaphorically speaking, this is someone who's reaching out and wants to connect with humanity, but there's no chance of that ever happening for a number of reasons. So
the lack of trees is perhaps his first disappointment. He was looking for light and he was looking for nature. He doesn't find any trees. In fact, he says, this word ground, nothing there. And then a church, which was architecture, what he was used to live in. The world he came from, I think he was pictured that way to create a false image of a real person in contrast to what he later saw. Where humans live, he finds them in a party, all dancing and laughing, and he lived in a place full of skeletons and bedwiders, although he didn't give us the idea that he was buried underground. I think he was tricking us. The writer got the impression that he created his architecture to trick the reader again and again.
And why do you think what's the relationship between the monster and the real castle and the people in the castle? Because he seems to be directed to the real castle and even recognize some people there.
Does he recognize them, or
Yeah,
is
he recalls.
Yeah, he starts to wander outside and he say, I guess I'm going in this direction, and he see the castle and he start remember some parts are missing and some parts are new.
Mhm.
And
So-
also he says like the castle is similar to the castle he lived. Like the construction is like the same, like it's the same color or something like that.
He even
But is
talks
that
about
possible?
additions. He talks about
Yeah.
the building is the same and things have been added.
Hmm.
And perhaps it's his old memories recalling him instinctively without realizing. And because he knows his way to the place where people are dancing, and he finds the road. It also is quite surprising that it takes so long to reach the house, because he takes a winding road to there, but he knows his way. So he's been taken, his memory is taking him there.
There's this idea of circularity that Ali was saying. No, it's he recognizes the castle in front of him because it's similar to the castle behind him, and maybe this will all go on again. I mean, if he's not exactly human, he's not exactly dead, so he could probably hang around for a long time. So maybe in his present, the situation we leave him in, he'll grow tired of that and try to escape, and then come on to something else that will shock him, and so on for eternity, which is very depressing actually, now that I've
Yeah.
Yes, it goes on and on and on and on.
That's what Roberto was saying, or Ali was saying, yeah.
I have never thought of that, but yeah, maybe he recognized the castle because he has been there already a lot of times, but he cannot remember. That's very sad. Poor monster.
And now I wonder why he cannot go back. Why
Because the door closes and he can't open it again. That's all there is. There's no mystery.
What's the intention of the writer not letting him go back to the original, the beginning of the tale?
I don't know if he says something about he's from another era. I don't know if I understood it wrongly, but he says something like he's from another era, and that's why he feels he's an outsider, a part of, obviously, he's dead. But I don't know if I understood wrong, because he says something like that.
I don't
Yeah,
remember.
right at the end, he talks a lot about, he references a lot things belonging to the culture and religion of ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
He talks a lot
He
about-
actually, I was very intrigued. I don't know how connected it is with another story, but he mentions a character which appears in another Lovecraft story about Egypt and pharaohs. But I don't know if it's relevant enough, I don't understand really the connection.
Yeah, we could interpret it that he was born, or he was from the ancient Egypt times. And there's a center where he says at the end, I know always that I am an outsider, a stranger in this century, a stranger on this century. It's like he belongs to other era, as you were saying, and if he lives forever and the circle goes on and on, this century, he doesn't belong in it.
It's very typical of the Lovecraft, of these types of monsters that come from before time or from out of time or from these ancient horrors. So I guess they are another one, and it makes sense that it's not only this, are they an outsider in this human world, but also, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it interesting because the castle seems like to be outside time or space because our rules of time and space no longer apply. But then he drops references at the end of Egypt, of the Nile, of real Egyptian gods. So yeah, maybe it's because he's a monster from outside time that can somehow sometimes enter our dimension. So yeah, it fits the theme of Lovecraft stories. It could be.
So what do you think is more the terror of the story? Being a person that is not living, not dead, you know, with all the darkness inside, or the fact that he is trapped in eternity? Because classic monsters are monsters in themselves. But as you were suggesting, the fact that you come from a time and you don't belong there is recurrent in this author. So being trapped in time, although the story seems set in a Gothic area, is also the most terrific thing that might happen to him. I don't know if you agree or how you see it. What is more scaring, or what's more scaring in the past, the monster or the endless life?
As the endless life, but being alone, maybe always being the outsider, which is why I said it should have been called the eternal outsider, and always wanting something that you can't get, that you'll never be able to get. You know, maybe there's this few moments of hope. I mean, if this is a circle, there's constantly these moments of hope when you climb the tower, comes out, but then it all crashes down again.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that the lack of hope, because if it's all a circle, if it never ends, then no matter what he does, the result would be the same. So he has nothing to live for, nothing to hope for, no aspirations, no real chance to change his life. Is the thing how things are. So yeah, I think that can be the main theme of the story. You were
also
saying
the
that?
fact that yeah. Also the fact that he doesn't like himself either. So he looks himself in the mirror and he's also terrified. So that's also scary because you're alone and you don't even like yourself. So yeah, I think it's loneliness is a main theme here.
Yes, I agree, and I really think it's really interesting because it's like he thinks as a human, and he thinks himself as a human. He thinks he's a normal young man, and the realization that he's not, and he could never fit in this image he has. I think is the main point of the story.
At a certain moment, there is a hint of acceptance when he reaches his third stage after the shock of the party. He understands that he develops a new life among other ghosts, and although he has no hope, and his memory kind of softens the situation, and he accepts his new style of life, if you want to call it.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think he still wants, desire this kind of stuff that he can get, like the enjoyment of in a human world. I think he still wants that. Only that he has realized that he cannot get it. So this question is like, do you think the ending is like optimistic or pessimistic? For me, it's like pessimistic.
I don't know. Would have been very pessimistic if he had gone back into the trap and not been able to go out again. That would have been the really, really bad option. what about the rest? Do you think it's an optimistic ending or a pessimistic ending?
I think it's kind of bittersweet because it has touches of both. Because there's a part where he says, I almost welcomed the bitterness of alienage. I almost welcomed the feeling of being an outsider. Maybe because he has become so familiar with the feeling that he embraces it in a way. So I think it's neither too pessimistic nor too optimistic. I think it's somewhere in between.
Mhm.
I don't know if you agree.
I didn't read much optimism into it. I mean, he says something about how he took I don't know how to pronounce it, the nepenthe or whatever, the drug, and that it calmed him for the moment, but that's the only thing that's keeping him, or it's calm. Like, I mean, yeah, okay, you discovered your true nature, so I guess that's good, but like, I don't know, I don't see that. I read the last words as very bitter, that there's no real joy in this. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't end the story being happy. That's
No, definitely
so.
not.
It's difficult to say that it's optimistic. And maybe there's some optimism there.
I think it's very pessimistic.
I think that's happened for me with all the Lovecraft story that I read. I don't think he's very optimistic in his style of writing.
I think that part of the sensation of horror, the atmosphere of horror, is that it's not optimistic at all. Like there's the way I read it, there's melancholy that it's everywhere and that lasts once you have finished the story, which is that he needs to forget, otherwise he hates himself, and that he's an outsider where he is and he can't connect or live among humans or friends or whatever. So it's bad. Whether you look at it from one side or the other, everything seems to be horror.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's very pessimistic, and these kind of stories, these kind of gothic stories, I don't know, it's my opinion, but I think it always is, there's a sensation that being an outsider, that even you are not a monster, if you are different to the society, you are going to be always an outsider, a monster, even if you feel you look the same as the rest of the human beings, you are going to be always outsider. You're going to be left alone from society. And in a lot of these stories, always have this feeling of sadness, of melancholy, of isolation, of, I don't know, in my opinion, it's very, very sad. You can feel his sadness and how he feels alone. But, yeah.
When you read his biography, it seems there's a strong bond between his personal life and his creations, his narrative. He was brought up isolated from other kids with high expectations from a family that needed to work. And then he moved into New York and he felt really like an outsider. I mean, that world was not for him. He came back to live with his aunt because his mother had died. He had a strong bond connection with his mother. And again, he felt enclosed but protected. So for him, the outside world was something he did not understand, that it was very far from what he felt. And also he felt different to the rest of the world. Somehow he felt superior. I don't know that if that shows in his other readings, but that he felt like an outsider all the time that he was in society. That was true, and that he reached out to create bonds with other people. He tried, but he was deeply unsuccessful. So perhaps he's just telling us the story of his life. Endless writings expressing the same obsession with a new, I don't know, a new image of himself.
Well, I'm not sure I agree because maybe our view from our modern times of Lovecraft's ideology is a bit biased, but Lovecraft was very racist, very racist. So he wasn't only a white supremacist, but he also thought that the English were the only like pure race. I don't know, like Hitler and the Aryans, but with the English people. So yeah, he wasn't very tolerant. So I think he didn't exactly fit the bill of feeling like an outsider. I don't know, because he thought members of his race and his culture were superior to others. So it doesn't fit to me the image of him feeling left out, feeling somehow inferior. I don't see it.
But
Maybe
under this light of what you said, that he was a white supremacist, I even make more sense of the outsider, because maybe for him, being an outsider is always something bad. It's something wrong. It's like you have to be with the people where you belong. If you are an immigrant of some kind, then there's something wrong. While for people that are not white supremacists, you can be an outsider and still find friends and people and family and be happy in this other place where you have gone to live. So it could make sense. Yeah,
I don't find the two ideas contradictory. I mean, there's lots of white supremacists now that feel very isolated from society. Have a real problem with that in the US with a lot of mass shooters that's exactly who they are. They feel like they're the only ones who see society for what it really is, and that, you know, the people that they don't like, that they look down upon, are taking over the world. And I mean, being a white supremacist does not exclude you from having mental issues, or from feeling what's the word I'm looking for, isolated or depressed, or even if you think that your race is superior, that doesn't necessarily mean that you think you're superior to other people.
yeah, that's true. Maybe yeah, those things don't have to be contradictory, but I think it was a different time because his views were more universally, well, nationally accepted than if he were to be this way in this day and age. So, but still, you can separate an author from his work, but also you can try to find themes and correlations. So what what you both said about him somehow portraying himself in the outcast is it's kind of a very good point, because he may project himself onto some of the monsters he wrote about, or other people, the people he despised in the monsters he wrote about.
yeah. And the more that I think about it, now that we are talking about the topic of him having this ideology, I think that there's a correlation there, that the more you think that you are superior to others, the more difficult it is for you to connect to others, the more isolated you are.
Yeah, because you don't hate others, you don't hate the people who you feel are inferior to you. You just want to be apart from them. You take pity on them. It's not hate, it's not a strong feeling. So yeah, I agree.
And I have to say that in this story, it doesn't show because there are not many characters, of course, but in other stories from Lovecraft, you can see clearly that his faces, I mean, the way he talks about Black people is like, it's very clearly how he thinks.
And also for me, it makes sense that he may feel disconnected, because I think his father died when he was very young. Very young. So it makes sense, at least for me, that he may feel that the world, or maybe people, are not very reliable because they might disappear. That, I mean, if your caregiver, your caregiver disappears when you're a kid, like I guess that the world doesn't look like a very safe place where you can connect, because if you do connect, then you're going to suffer, because at some point you will be abandoned in a way, I guess.
In
Yeah.
fact,
Sorry, Miriam.
It was when his mother died that he really felt the loss. Although his father died when he was younger, he had a very strong bond with his mother. The mother was the reason why he was brought up so isolated and so looking down onto other people. They thought too much of themselves. And when his mother died at the age when he was about 32, he really felt the loss and disconnected with the world. He tried to, well, he married once, but it was not successful. So I guess he never felt a deep connection with the rest of the world, except when he was living in his own home. And when his mother died, he returned to live in the same house with his aunties, and so he went back to a safe place. What I wanted to add as well was the fact that he, as a writer, was not really successful in his time, and that he had to live on rearranging or rewriting other people's work, which was quite frustrating and not giving a lot of money. But he admitted that he could not live on his writing, and that was extremely disappointing for him, that he could not be accepted as a writer that he wanted to be. So perhaps another reason for his feeling of isolation or outsider. Oh, sorry, Adrian, what was your going to say?
I forgot, but following on your idea about his writing, yeah, it's kind of sad that he wasn't recognized at his time, because he has influenced the horror and gothic stories that came after him a lot. He's one of the big pillars of the genre, and that he couldn't see that is well, quite sad. Also, I liked his style writing. In this story, which is very short, we have an idea of the atmosphere of the castle, of where he lives, of his feelings, of everything, character, setting, plot itself, in a few paragraphs, in a few lines, and it transmits the ideas in a poetic way. So he not only does convey the information, a lot of information very fast, very quickly, but also does it in a very beautiful way.
Yeah, I really like the way in this story and in other stories, the way he describes normally the monsters. He like provides you with the adjectives, sort of speaking, before an objective image. So it's kind of the work of the reader to imagine what kind of monster he's talking about. And it's like really funny because it's even the way the monster express when he looks at the mirror, it's like, oh no, the most horrible thing, the most hideous things. It's like he's telling you how you're supposed to feel, or how he feels even before describing what he's seeing. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. He describes a lot for you to be able to soak up the atmosphere and feel like you're there and you're living the main character's predicament. But also, his descriptions don't drag on. You enjoy every for me at least, I enjoyed every word he wrote, and I thought it was beautiful and in a dark and obscure sort of way. And also, I really liked some of the details that contributed to general feeling of isolation we got from the story. And one of them was the main character, the monster. He had books, so that's why he knew what the things he knew about the world were from the books he had in the castle. But also, he mentions, I think he even dedicates a paragraph or two about to it, that he never once thought about speaking, so he never speaks. He doesn't know how to. So I think that encompasses very well just how isolated he is, because even when we are alone, we can talk to ourselves. People sometimes have this bad habit of speaking to themselves even though there are other people there. So I think not even being able to communicate with yourself out loud, it's a very big part of the monster's isolation. And I thought it was a very, very nice touch, very, very, very necessary detail. I liked it. The text is full of things like that.
Yeah, reading the story, I thought that he couldn't talk because he doesn't practice talking, so he loses the ability to do so. But knowing how it ends and that he's a monster, I wonder if he can talk because he's a monster and he doesn't have the ability to talk. Because what I thought when I was reading the story and thinking, oh, he lost the ability to talk because he's alone and doesn't need to talk, so he doesn't use it, is, okay, but if it was me, I would talk to myself. And most people I know will be constantly talking to themselves or talking aloud things. So maybe it's because he's a monster.
Again, the writer plays with us because he tries to create feelings in the reader. He tries to move us, and so we feel pity on him because we feel him as a real person when he talks about books, about not hearing anybody, only having skeletons for company. So I felt tricked. All these descriptions that you said, they were nice. They were little steps to take us where he wanted. And well, he's a master of tricking the reader.
Yeah, I'm going to try something that we have never tried before, but I think this software can do, which is I'm going to share my screen so we can see a paragraph where he describes the castle, because I think it's very poetic. It transmits a sense of darkness that is, well, quite useful to convey what he wants about the atmosphere in the story, and it's very well written in my opinion. So let's see. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's cool, yeah.
So it says here, so I know not where I was born, save that the castle was infinitely old and infinitely horrible, full of dark passages and having high ceilings where the eye could find only cobwebs and shadows. The stones in the crumbling corridors seemed always hideously damp, and there was an accursed smell everywhere, as of the pile-up corpses of dead generations. It was never light, so that I used sometimes to light candles and gaze steadily at them for relief. So, yeah, the style where he transmits in a few lines what is surrounding him, where does he lives, and the atmosphere of the story is awesome. I like it so much.
And he was giving hints in this paragraph.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, I was not surprised at the end, but I was surprised when he opens the door and he finds himself, like he said, like he found ground, like he thought he was in this tower in the castle. That was for me a surprise.
I also wanted to ask you about the initial poem from Keats. Why do you think the writer started with this poem? What is the real meaning of this poem? Because I tried to find the reference of this poem, and it seems a chunk from a longer poem from Keats, from the Eve of St. Agatha, or and I still don't see the connection. Has anyone seen a link between this poem and the story?
I think it's the atmosphere of the castle, because he, in the poem, it is mentioned shades, forms, long be nightmare. I think that the castle, I think it's meant to be right out of a nightmare by the paragraph Adrian selected. It's meant to be gothic, dark, and brooding, and haunted. And also, I really found a reference to the warrior guests with shade and form. The living in, well, not the living, the skeletons, the other beings that are in the castle with the monster, but can interact with him, can't have any sort of relationship with him. So there are other things there, but hidden and cursed. So the monster can't. He still feels alone and can't interact with anyone. But they are there. They're these haunting presences that always loom in the shadows. That's the feeling I got from reading the poem. Sort of.
But I thought it was unnecessary. He already creates that atmosphere in his own tale, in his own story. So I didn't see the need to start with such a poem. In fact, it was quite distracting at the beginning. More opinions?
It didn't bother me, but it also didn't enhance the story for me at all. I didn't know that it needs to be there. If it was just a little bit of pretension on his part, or it was a poem that he particularly liked or found particularly inspiring, perhaps. Maybe it inspired this story. I'm not sure. I'll be honest, I didn't think about it that much. I kind of forgot it was there by the time I got the end, but
Me too.
yeah, I don't know that it
I remember it. When he showed us the description of the castle and I saw it, I just remembered that it was a question I wanted to ask.
Yeah, also before, it was very common in other times to put something before every piece of fiction. For example, a poem or a short quote, or in other Gothic stories like Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, a second title that also served to kind of glamorize the story, make it more, yeah, so maybe it was a bit pretentious, but I think it was custom at that time. It was simply force of habit, I believe.
Thank you, Adriana. I can see that you have written the poem for us. Can you all see it?
Yeah, it's a similar atmosphere. These four verses, these four sentences kind of match the text, I guess.
Especially the last word, nightmare forever.
Yeah, I would guess it was what Eugenia was saying, that it was sort of a convention at the time, or that he had read this poem and maybe that particular stanza stood out and inspired the writing of this story.
So those who have read other stories from Lovecraft, have you seen him use him taking chunks of other poems or writers to illustrate or enhance his writing?
I guess so. I mean, I don't remember. I don't usually pay attention to the quote in the beginning of the.
So there's the writer putting all that effort and nobody cares, not even reads it.
Well, after all, they're not his words, so it's not the thing we came to read.
It's copy and paste.
But he chose a good one.
And copy and paste.
What do you think about other people in the castle before? Because I'm reading and he says like beings must have care for my needs. Yes, I cannot recall any person except myself or anything alive, but the noiseless rats and the bats and spider. I think that whoever knows me must have been shockingly rich. So it means that it was somebody in the castle, no? Like
Yes, but he didn't
I will
really.
copy this. Like
Yeah, I recall.
Yeah. And he says like, it's very interesting because he say like, he's like, the other person was like me, but in more like old and more.
The chat function is coming in handy.
Yeah.
And we're learning to use it. Here's the first tip that makes us aware that he recalls a previous life or a previous society.
No, maybe there was someone
Or
there,
maybe
but we
himself.
actually don't know if the monster like eat or. So maybe he has his needs and someone was there to feed him. I don't know. But I think it means that there was someone, at least one person.
Maybe he was recalling his father.
Does he have a father?
He or she? That was a good question that asked Rose. He or she?
It.
Well, monsters are gender neutral, right?
Yeah, I don't know if we can apply our biological standards to this.
Somehow we do.
Creature.
He's asexual, like an amoeba.
We do. We all
like
assumed
the
he was a
angels.
he, but
But you can say it, right? It's a monster.
What?
You can say it.
it's yeah.
The moment that he speaks at the end of flesh and decaying, you immediately imagine a human. And traditionally, when you imagine a human figure, it turns out to be masculine, male more than female. For reasons of tradition, I don't know, but in fact, the text doesn't say if it's he or she.
Well, the first sentence is, well, I think it's like a neutral thing, but it says, "And happy is he to whom the memories of childhood, etc." So maybe you're a little bit biased when you read the first sentence. You read that he, and maybe you think about a male.
And I guess the use of he here is literary. Like if you use we or you, it doesn't necessarily mean. In a time that nobody would thought about using she as a representative of all human beings or society.
But when I was reading the story, I was always thinking about a male. But I mean, maybe it's because I'm biased, or maybe because the author biased me. I don't know. But yeah, it doesn't say in any place that it's a male.
I'm sorry, but for what I know of Lovecraft, I'm going to judge him and say he wasn't very different from people from his age, and I shall think that it was a male. I'm sorry, Lovecraft. I'm sorry, I'm judging you. Yeah, I know.
Well, the fact that he could open the door of the trap, it means that he's a strong person. And so the moment that you think of a strong person, you think of someone that is a man more than a woman.
Judging by Lovecraft's standards, it can be a woman, it can be Irish, it can't be an African American, it cannot be many races and many people. It must be
anybody.
A straight white English male. That's my answer.
If Lovecraft, most probably it comes from outer space. What do you care about?
Probably it's a space worm or a space tomato, something like that.
I agree. I think at the time that this was written, I think Lovecraft had someone like himself in mind, a male, a white male, certainly. So but I think today when we read it, we want to assume that perhaps it can be applicable to a female or a male. I think today we have a different sensitivity as we read this than someone in the early 1920s would have had.
The truth is that we read a classic author, so we also try to adapt to the times he wrote about. So I guess that's the reason why we imagine a man, or what figure of a man is depicted in our heads. But I agree that it could be anyone. I haven't read any of the other cosmic tales. Has anybody read any of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I say this is not really a representative of the cosmic horror, because the cosmic, well, there is like this kind of mythology created by Lovecraft. I was saying like there are like these kind of gods, which are monsters, but they came from outer space. So they were here before the humankind, and they are like hidden in the oceans. So it's like Lovecraft said at some point they will return and rule the earth. So this kind of the but actually there is like a deeper like conception in the Lovecraft stories, because he talks a lot about the inability of the humankind to get the knowledge and to get the whole truth. So I think it's normally one of the main topics in these stories. Barry has read another this kind of cosmic horror stories from Lovecraft.
I have, but I can't remember. I was too young.
No, actually, I was reading again the Call of Cthulhu.
Call of Cthulhu, yeah.
Cthulhu. I don't know. No, it's
in my mind, it always sounds like Cthulhu. That's the way I read it.
That's a very cool name. I'm going to stick with Cthulhu.
It's probably cooler than the actual pronunciation.
I think it's Cthulhu.
Cthulhu sounds more scary. Cthulhu sounds like it's the name of a summer ice cream for me.
Like a little animated teddy bear or something.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Cthulhu. I'm like Nessie, but I'm Cthulhu. No.
Yeah,
it's cooler Cthulhu. Sorry.
Yeah, the Call of Cthulhu is like the first story of the Cthulhu series. And I actually was reading it again, and I mean, it's okay, but I don't think it's for everybody.
I also wanted to add that it's not only Lovecraft, because I learned about him from I think it was an article about cosmic horror and the worst monsters in cosmic horror, the most scary ones. And of course, Cthulhu was there, but there were also other short stories from authors that
from other writers, right?
Yeah, from other writers that I don't know. Some of them were friends of Lovecraft during his lifetime, but others were his kind of spiritual successors that after his works became known, they tried to write in his style, but with different monsters, with their own ideas, but with the same feel, with the same cosmic horror themes. So there was not one or two, but there were a few authors and a few good stories that also deserve to be read, that are not from Lovecraft but from other people, but are similar in theme.
Yeah, I have not read any other writer in this universe, but that's amazing. I mean, how the impact of this kind of universe is even more than, I don't know, the Tolkien universe, or you know.
Yeah, the Tolkien universe is also very extensive, but I don't think much authors have contributed to the Middle Earth stories. It was all Tolkien with other characters for the same setting. But also, yeah, I think it's very interesting because I don't think Lovecraft's case has ever happened before. Other authors trying to recreate the same theme, the same genre as created by a previous author. So yeah, I think they're worth checking out, the other tales as well as his.
What did you write? Like, there is no correct way to pronounce
Yeah,
Cthulhu.
I was searching on Google how to pronounce Chulu, and I found that the Lovecraft wrote those words.
I'm reading the chat that you wrote at the end, and again, it's surprising the obsession with speech. There was no relation to the human speech equipment, so they could not make sounds. So he was a guttural language or whatever communication system.
It's like Kluhu or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for my poor pronunciation, but I had to try. It's very different from what we pronounce in Spanish. Because in Spanish it's Cthulhu.
Cthulhu, but it's like CTH. You can pronounce that in Spanish.
Tulu, maybe. CH and then Tulu. I don't know. I just find the aspect of the pronunciation amusing. But I think it's a great explanation because he talks about how the creature is supposed to be from another world. So no matter how you try to pronounce it, better or worse, it's not going to be the same. So I think it adds to the mystery of Cthulhu.
Right.
Or Cthulhu or Tulu, I don't
know. Sorry, I think you're gonna need to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, it has been a pleasure. Nice to meet you all. Maybe we'll see you the next time.
Yeah, there are 2 other calls, so you're welcome to join.
So yeah, you will see me. You will see me here.
See you soon then.
See you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Right now I can see you bigger.
My connection is really bad right now. I don't know.
Are other stories by Lovecraft as short as this one, or are they longer?
He has many short stories, I believe. Maybe not as short as this one.
Yes, he has a lot. Yeah.
The one that I tried to read was a novel, which was probably my mistake. Like, it's quite long. Not that long, but like it's novel length. And I didn't even get to the monsters. It was all just like, we're planning this trip. Let's tell you every single detail of what the supplies we need and the weather is going to be like and the math involved in planning this trip. So I can't really recommend the longer stories.
So Lovecraft's description is to you. That's a very, very nice recommendation.
My favorite one so far has been the Dunwich Horror, which I think we put it in the club like years ago. For me, that's my favorite. And he talks about these kind of monsters from. But yeah, I was reading the Call of Cthulhu, and I don't know. I can see that not everybody is gonna like it.
And what did you particularly like that story?
I don't know. I think for me it's like a very it has the horror element is like very intense because it's like a village, and in this village it starts to happen like the cows are getting killed and something like mysterious happens, but no one can see what is causing this this kind of stuff. So the monster is like, there is like a big monster, but it's invisible. So for me, it's like very a horror story. Can you see me well now?
Yeah.
My connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sound fades off from time to time, but we can see you well.
So yeah, that's my recommendation, the Dunwich horror, or even the Cthulhu, the Call of Cthulhu.